I'm going to read you poems that I've just written in the last 3 months. And I'm a very, very slow writer. It took me 10 years between my first book and my second book. And then suddenly I had this sort of spasm thing. And I wrote this body of work. And so I'm going to read them to you. They're still kind of intense to me because I don't, and I was trying to think of how can I really describe what these are about. And in a way I'm too close to them to really be able to say. But I can say that there seems to be a consistent personality through all of them. A certain kind of madness, a certain kind of lack of boundary between the self and what's out there. They seem to get all mixed up. Nature and the self seem to get all kind of twisted in these poems. The first one, just to show you how my poems, I was mentioned in the Daily Nebraskan as being a Nebraska poet, but I've never written one poem in which anything having to do with the landscape of Nebraska has entered my poems. I love Nebraska, though. And I know that I sort of suffer through jet lag on these matters. I'm only now beginning to write poems about Connecticut, where I lived 20 years ago. Anyway, here's a poem I wrote in Sweden about Florida. And it's called The Waves. The waves break against the shore with the force of false promises. Are they giving lectures? Will they drone on and on like they did in the old days, before our lungs took their first breath, before our skeletons were here to start a little history? A streak of blue cuts through my attention, the sky reminding me that I should look outward, not inward at my own ruins, where everything I know is squeezed into a few crumbling walls of limestone, dissolving beneath the pressure of years. Are the water's little nervous breakdowns a sign that I'm falling apart? Will my self-deceptions, half buried in sand, be uncovered as the tide lowers, leaving behind shells and bits of broken glass? Why have I trusted this entourage of shadows that follows me after each change of address? It's as if the shadows have voted me out of office, and I'm no longer the candidate that best represents their vague yearnings and subtle outrage. They'll forever remain half-formed, colorless imitations of the things they follow. And like the wind wringing its hands, they'll never be visible. As I walk here, haunting the afternoon, my voice stuck in my throat, I worry that the gods, performing their subtle calculations, will cancel me out of the equations. The other thing that happened to me during this writing jag was that words would stand out. I'd be on an airplane looking at a magazine, and suddenly a word would leap out, and I'd say, that's my word, I've got to have it. And this was one of those words. It was picayune. You know what that means? It means small, kind of sort of mean almost, and insignificant. It's also about that time of night where it's just starting to get dark, and the night seems to be kind of taking a house here, then suddenly it'll take a road over there, it'll take a field over here, and suddenly things are just being taken away one by one. Night is performing its rapid reasoning by exclusion and will soon leave everything out except a few lights wedged into black crevices. Sloth in its hard-nailed boots is wearing down my threshold. It is full of lies and false accusations about the ugliness of stars. Its syntax is burning insults into my ear, enunciating flammable syllables with care. Across the face of the earth, an expression of sadness is crawling. I'm looking for something to do. I'm hoping to change my shape into something without vanity, the metallic buzz of the minutes flying by. Is the future ready to furnish me with an affidavit? I'm still looking around for signs of God, but so far, the paralyzed trees are only an indication that a dead wind has overwhelmed their impulse to abandon extra leaves in autumn. Does the future recognize me disguised like this as the river swollen by last night's rain? I'm teaching myself to be transparent like water, my thoughts no longer blocking my view of the future, which presents its rules of conduct in an effort to end my divisive rebelliousness. My current rushes downstream carrying old shoes and rusted cans. What should I do about the water's clairvoyance? Let it see all the way to the bottom? The night's black bangs will be cut by no one. The picayune shadows mean nothing to me. sometimes when I'm writing, and I'm sure every writer has this feeling, or anybody who really uses language, the feeling that the relationship between the word and the thing it represents, there's sort of a struggle going on. Sometimes the word kind of wants to pull away from the thing it represents, and then it kind of gets back on it. And there just seems to be a little war going on between language and the world that it describes. And so this is a sort of my little ars poetica about language. And it's called Where Was I? Is it lost, the ability to turn despair into art? The light of feeling, barren of all understanding, astonishes things in its wake. A street here, a house there, surfacing into awareness as if from a long distance, made longer by a struggle with night or personal regret. Where was I? Disguising myself, no doubt, as a noise passing through the ear of someone deaf, a noise not met by listening. Now I'm barely in reach of my echo, bouncing off a tragedy that occurred long ago, a tragedy that stands between me and my past like a wall. I can't see it, but it's there, causing me to waver between a simple explanation for my bad behavior and the distinct feeling that I should be shot. A tiny scrap of insight lets me see briefly into an ancient happiness with its little escape routes where light isn't working undercover and ecstasy isn't gone forever, just lost, that's all. Poetry swings back and forth in its cradle of words without questioning its subtle imprisonment. A word tries to attach itself to this thing I'm sitting on, a chair, but then it struggles to break loose from the chair in order to abstain from meaning, which is a trap narrowing down the boundless impression the word was after. It wanted to be invisible, a gap through which understanding could make itself felt in its fullness, without the restriction of a name, without encountering a rigid definition of this thing I'm sitting on, this chair, which my mind has already turned into an image at rest. In poetry, the hours can't achieve a constant speed. Words irregularly break the descent of minutes into the past. Insight occasionally strikes a match, perceiving something vaguely familiar in the blotchy dark. Nostalgia, a door ajar through which no one can go. Behind the door, gestures are piling up in illiterate shadows. Where was I? I'm facing west. The sun is setting. Escape with your life if you must, and colonize tomorrow if you dare to walk barefoot across the sharp stones and blades of grass. Poetry has endless time to open the sky's dictionary and decipher the meaning of every star. Here's one. Depression comes to pay me a visit, knocks on my door. And it's called What the Stars Owe Me. And if you're susceptible to depression, it sort of sometimes feels like it comes from the outside and just sort of says, hi, how are you? Here I am to stay. What the Stars Owe Me. A knock at the door, and there it was, depression. The corners of its mouth turned down in disapproval. I said, excuse me, I've got dishes to do. If you want to borrow something, a cup of doubt or anxiety, you'll have to go elsewhere. And it said, if you think you can get away without noticing the little black patches of shadow everywhere, you're mistaken. You can either officially quit living or I'll fire you. You can suffer my condition marked by irreversible mental deterioration, or you will forever be banished by the stars. Would you rather shed your image and look more like me, or become invisible so that you can see through yourself? Go away, I said. The next day, it was back. Already the voices inside of you are canceling each other out, it said. Even though you're making an effort to look innocent, you are corrupted by waves of envy and nausea. Fear and dread are rooting themselves at the base of your skull. I'll outlive these feelings, I said. Oh, no, you won't. I have a map right here of your future, it said. See the burned-out bridges and dead ends? See the barren canyons? The next day, the pain was still with me, like a last note vibrating on the strings of a harp. An anxiety serving no purpose shuttled back and forth between my childhood and my adulthood. I was the inventor of misguided thoughts. I gazed into my own interior, memorizing details, tables set for one, and nothing but candles for illumination. I worried that even the gray rain would leave me due to its private set of convictions. Maybe the sky had an airy, uncluttered look because it was dreaming of my absence. I needed help. My defenses were losing their touch. My behavior was shedding my image in favor of someone else's, someone whose stance was overly adult and without backbone. I was an idle onlooker, while all around me flowers and trees were giving me suspicious looks. Were angels applauding my madness? The stars didn't owe me anything, yet I kept feeling that they should pay me back. But for what? I stood naked in front of the mirror so long that I saw what I looked like before I was born. I was invisible, like an accumulation of messages passing briefly through DNA, or a shadow passing through my parents' ability to get on each other's nerves, or a gesture that hadn't yet expressed itself in terms of someone's hands. I'm wondering, why do the angels cross the existential divide into life, into birth, on the edge of experience, breaking away from the oneness of light? Do they know that death will later retrieve them? Oh, let me stay. Let me live here in the wake of this starlight that will never forgive me. In this one, an angel comes to visit me. And the angel gets me to fly in the poem, but the flying is more of a meditative flying. And the angel starts out talking in the beginning of the poem, describing what it's like to be an angel. We borrow, it's called Take My Wings. We borrow sadness and joy to find out what it's like to be human. We laugh and cry at the wrong times, caught in the crossfire of human emotions we don't understand. Our tears shatter and bleed. For us, there's no such thing as regret. This body is only temporary, but I love the way skin and bones pull me down to earth. Can I turn your fear into a chair? I need something to sit on. An exotic vein bulged in the angel's forehead. Had it come all the way across the cold squares of the calendar just to share its secrets? In the hierarchy of angels, where exactly did this one fit? Was I asking for trouble? It said, "Why don't you take my wings modeled by sunlight? Now that the sky and its distances are accessible to you, go ahead and fly out of that body that has trapped you for so many years." I'm not a genius, I said, but I know when I'm being asked to fall off the edge of experience. I know a void when I see one. The alterations were difficult, but these wings should fit you, it said. I've got scars on my shoulder, I said. They prove I'm human. Take pity. But the angel did not. My awareness, which distanced itself, started to soar in ways I could not exactly formulate, no longer tied down to visible objects or the minutes clicking shut. Every face I saw below reminded me of yet another face, which reminded me of still another face. Every violet shadow multiplied in the dying light until I saw odd configurations at the bottom of things. On closer look, they were hieroglyphics I could apprehend without deciphering. Complicated messages from the universe were translated in the form of black squiggles and letters. For the rest of my life, I'd be carving them into stone. When I came back, I heard the rain stutter. Nothing was the same. The wind on the creaking stairs was filled with accusations. Before I could defend myself, a door slammed its "Shut up." I was quiet. I celebrated the anniversary of silence. I scrounged around the earth, looking for a little anesthesia. Everywhere I looked, the clean boundaries between things grew fuzzy, as if to tell me I was being held there by a trance. My thoughts, rattling their misconceptions in my head, these were my songs. And though, like light, I saw through the manifestation of sorrow before me, a few spotted doves perched on a sagging telephone wire in front of my house where all afternoon a lone shutter banged against the wall, having come loose during a rainstorm of my tormented feelings, I had trouble speaking. My echo bounced between a shadow and a hard interior place. And then an angel drifted toward me, its wings breaking through the surface of light into the visible world. I look up, I keep pacing the ground, looking for you. Oh, my angel, I know my hell is wrong. W.H. Auden said that poetry makes nothing happen, but this next poem I read to my fiancé, and he got all choked up and sort of, So I thought that was great. The other thing, well, I won't go into the other story about it, but it's called The Kiss. It's fall. I walk around looking like everyone else, but I've got decorative combs in my hair. I'm keeping these maples a secret. They're doing me a favor, changing color. I'm their guest. I won't be staying all that long, but when I pluck a dying leaf, it's as if I'm holding time in my hands. Sadness isn't inoculating me anymore, its chilly needle in my heart. I'm lucky. I'll probably come out smelling like a rose. The crows are gone, their caws unintelligible like private jokes. That was a close one. I almost didn't construct infinitesimal distances to keep me aloof. I almost didn't keep the clear boundaries between things intact. But now I'm saved. I've got my own breakable silence. It's there right now in front of me, in the form of a man who loves me. He's not saying anything, but what a kiss, and my standards are high. If you only knew what it was like, you'd want to be a poet like me. You'd want to consciously work out your whole life just to receive one such kiss. Is the afterlife something like this, maybe? An extended moment in which we are forced to live by a different logic as our bodies do? We've invented a new alphabet in which touch exists on the border of speech. On the other side of the border, time speeds up. There goes my birthday. And we're already wondering, are the mourning doves here to forgive and console? Our impressions of the stars are uncorrected ones. We fall in love, marry, and the clock in the hall strikes 5. We fall away from our personal histories and scarcely notice the small injustices. After years of scrutinizing each other's faces, we still love what we see. We're saying that we're old. We would rather shed our skins. We're saying that the protean character of our souls will sustain us after death. And why not? Do the maples care if their lost leaves become documents proving that we were here? Thank goodness the wind is shaking a little sense into those trees and we have not fallen out of favor. I want to live here, no matter how difficult it is, on such short notice, to take the place of the bulky shadows, no matter how difficult it is to let the wind take away the leaves. This kiss, I'm certain, is a form of erasure, bringing us closer for a single moment to the center of the earth's attention. This next one, I read to my fiancé, and he said strange things started happening to his body. So, eat your heart out, W.H. Auden. It's called Don't Believe It. It's about sex. W.H. Auden probably never had that. That was part of his poem. Okay, Don't Believe It. 1. At last, it's plain to me. Morning's light will outlive these temporary feelings. Light instructs me, change, change. Have I told you what to do when fear grabs me, pushing me down with the force of its gravity? Don't pull me up. If hatred and despair are fighting one another to inhabit me, slowly back away. But go ahead and touch me if desire is hunting for a body to lock itself into. It finds me here, lying in bed. It enters my hands in order to travel all over you, imprinting a map in my memory. Each word is a star I navigate by, and that's why I'm steering myself into this moment, shifting its pace as it glides across the surface of time. Let's stay here, matching each of the body's questions with exact right answers until we've translated everything we have to say into this unbroken link between us, these small lightning flashes of touch we live by. 2. Would I be going too far if I asked you to touch my thigh? You're pretending to sleep, but I know you're flaming inside the body's confinement. Aren't you glad I know these things and won't change the subject, arched in preparation like this for lovely, crude tactics? All day I've suffered under heavy layers of regret and negative thinking, and I want to live out here. Your hand hurries, exposing darkness to touch. If there's deeper attachment which turns out to be love, so much the better. This will be our grammar ignorant of shame, washing us clean of the complex tracery of our sins. This will be our infinite moment in which there's no time to lose. Yes, time is stripping down to its true rainbow colors in the presence of this raining of life. And this is only October. As we huddle here, all around us trees outside are changing their minds into flame-colored leaves. If you're thinking like them, that the best way to keep things intact is to give them up, don't believe it. Okay, this next poem, it starts off to a general audience, and then it addresses a male audience at the end. The other thing is that it's in the morning, at that point in the morning when morning hasn't quite decided it's going to stay there. It kind of looks like it could back away any second. It's just giddy, and it's uncertain. And the poem is called I Won't Get Up. Sloth and torpor are two themes that go throughout my work because there are two themes that exist with me in my very life. I won't get up. Not until morning stops this uncertain giddiness and settles for a more straightforward daylight. Somewhere death is rattling in its box, shaking with music. Am I there too, materializing as a high, shrill note? I'm at home with language in its big room of phrases, but I'm also afraid that its subtle inferences might kill me. What I mean to say is that the light's fervent impulses are wasted on me, or the night, seeking its private revenge, won't let morning heal the breach made by the absence of light. There are certain pockets of air in which my sadness has become invisible matter, nevertheless contained by the intake of breath. I've given my replies, I've named my silences by other names, but what names? How can I be expected to know when I haven't been informed by the big blaze, the irrational occasion for the first pulse, the first breath? We're here by accident. This morning is giving me a lethal dose of lucidity. Luckily, the sky at noon won't look at me anymore with such horror that I shall see myself as one of its major impediments. I don't regard the sky as my chosen audience. I'd rather address a substitute that isn't so racked by useless grief. Everywhere I look, the walls of flame aren't there, and I don't know why I'm spiraling back to the moment of my birth. Go ahead and believe me, it won't hurt you. I've got good news for you. You formally defined your existence by hoping that a simple breeze would riffle through your hair, allowing emotion to take flight from the body in a way that could not be disguised, not by anyone, not even the uncorrected one who supposedly made us. My friend, my brother, have we blocked it out somehow? The female body here for life, banished from the tales. I've looked up to you. Why? To find extinction in a lover's face? To trot back and forth a lowly animal beneath your gaze? My friend, excuse me, I've counted clouds until I've gone blind. In this dream of staying alive in a place where everything female is put into question, even this voice of the person I was before I was born under the sign of a different logic, a different light.